ecology by their dams and their cities and their industry. They tend to do everything more extreme than we do because they have more people, they have more cooperation. Some would say they have more slavery now with all these factories. So the whole thing about replacing that with, and China does a lot of permaculture. They have something like 70,000 what we would call counties here. They call communes, where they're cooperating. Well, China has a tradition of this, of cooperation, but they are ruining their ecology by this overproduction thing. And so if we just harvest the energy of the wind, the sun, the rain, the water on a daily basis, then we don't need to make huge dams which ruin the ecology. The dams ruin the ecology. They flood the area, they kill the fish, the sediments fill up. The dams create more problems, and then for electricity, and then for irrigation. So they ruin their water system by damming, and so it's just, if you study empire and see how they've crashed. China had a really big empire, but it was run by the British 100 years ago.
That's right.
And that was why Chairman Mao did the revolution. Well, Jefferson and Chairman Mao, Thomas Jefferson and Mao and a few others have said, we need to have a revolution every generation. That every generation needs to find its own ways and its own sources and its own innovations and discovery. So we're discovering now that nature supplies us with what we need. And there's some good examples in Europe. There are places in Norway and Finland and Switzerland and actually in France and Europe and England that have tremendous organic markets and farms. And do you have those in Sweden?
We have a few. I'm not that, very much out there in that kind of field and looking at this in that sense. But I'm sure there are a few. There are actually a few that I've heard of from a few friends now when I come to think of it. And I think there are a lot of different ones also. Some are just more like, communes that are kind of into the raw food diets and stuff like this, and they even create sustainable, in the ecological sense. So I guess there are a few ones out there actually. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's good. But one thing that come to mind, when you talked about that they are futurists, so to speak. They look for the future, towards the future, and all that, and what the plan is, for society overall. And you're talking about, in that sense, going backwards. But I mean, the plan of these guys is, if we look at it, I mean, this is about, if we're talking about energy, for example. I mean, they are creating particle accelerators, building supercomputers and HARP-type devices that are going in, up there in Alaska with billions of watts putting in them. And I mean, so for the sake of energy, conservation, there's nothing like that on the horizon at all. I mean, is this sustainable in the long run? What's going to happen here, do you think?
Well, we've been talking about crash, and it's very possible that they are planning for a crash, and that's why they're going so fast to develop all this stuff to control the world. The HARP thing is to control the weather. They've got lasers and weapons in outer space. It's hard to be positive about the future when we think about high tech. Well, for me, because I love nature. So in a way, it's a spiritual thing of getting back to nature by loving nature. It isn't like, well, I have to do this now because there's a problem. It's like I'm choosing because it's fun. It's enlivening. I'm still a kid. I'm over 60 years old, and I still feel like a kid because nature is inspiring. Nature is our supplier. And all these big tech things that we were talking about, is they really want to control everything, like control the universe. I mean, that's how they think. This is big science. Yeah. Big science is a religion. People believe in technology. We do not know the people who make our technology. We never know them.
Yeah.
We always import this stuff through stores that it comes 1,000 miles away. So it's like, what are your sources? What do you want? And do you know how something is made? Do you know where it's from? Who made it? How it's made? What are the ingredients? You can't even read the ingredients anymore. I mean, they publish it, but you can't read it. It's microprint, and there's all this science. It's science is a religion. You learn how to think and speak and write in scientese. It's actually a language, scientese. And in every culture, like the Swedish or all the different cultures, have a lot of the same words, which are science words. So it's like it is certainly a religion. It's a belief. You believe in the experts who you've never met. I was raised in science. I was raised a science nut. I started in the 6th grade being a science head, and went for about 15 years, and it made me sick and depressed and rich. People who and it's been known for 5,000 years that the cities are the places where people get sick. That's the place where these monster hospitals are. Hospitals now that are bigger than small towns.
Yeah, oh, that's incredible. By the way, speaking of towns and cities, one aspect that I've heard a few people talk about this is kind of the grid lines on even where some cities actually are located themselves. But I noticed looking at your website a little bit, and you mentioned that kind of in a shortlist menu, and talked about the different grid lines that are out there and so forth, the Curry lines, the Hartmann lines, and all of that. Is that anything that you go into, like in your new book, or have written about before?
Yeah, that's very important. The whole Earth energy thing is what Earth is, how Earth is organized. Like the fault lines, I was dreaming about that today. The fault lines in the ocean, at the bottom of the oceans, is where the Earth is growing from. And those are the most powerful grid lines on the Earth, where the ocean is growing. The fault lines, the lava is coming out and it's pushing the oceans apart, and it's expanding Earth. There's a system that of this. Actually, they've been aware of this ever since they've been the Romans built. And I say the Romans because we're Westerners and we think of those empires. But they've been aware of these power lines inside the Earth. In England, they're called ley lines. They probably have names in all the countries over there for them because they've been building temples and military bases and churches, cathedrals on these power spots.
Yeah.
The vortexes is the scientific name for it. And the ley lines, there's two kinds of ley lines. There's the energy that flows through the ground, and then there's the lines that you can see, like if you stand on a hill or something, you can see these various standing stones and temples and monoliths and megaliths and the circles, the rock circles. All those are all set up on the magnetic fields of the Earth, and they're where they concentrate the energy. So there's two kinds. Well, actually, there's three kinds. There's the hot places where they're very active and they're like kind of shocking and they give off energy. Then there's magnetic spots, power vortexes, that are very attractive and they concentrate energy and people are attracted to them, like a lake or springs or hollows, canyons, valleys, and so on. People are attracted to these. And then there's the balancing kind. So there's the hot, the radiating, and then there's the cool, which is a magnetic, and then there's the balancing. There's three kinds. So like the magnetic triangles, or well, actually they're just called triangles because you don't really see triangles much, except for pyramids and tetrahedrons. And when I was out on the ground, I would see a lot of tetrahedrons in the rocks, particularly in Hawaii, but in other places you see tetrahedrons in rocks, tetrahedrons are three-sided pyramids. Buckminster Fuller started this actually rediscovering the polyhedra geodesic geometry, tetrahedrons, pyramids, spheres, and all kinds of triangulations. But Da Vinci was the first discoverer of this in the West, and it's been integrated in. It's what nature does. It's crystals. All crystals are based on the triangles and the spheres and tetrahedrons and pyramids. Well, they've rediscovered this in the about in the last 50 years with crystals and all the organic chemistry and metallurgy and stuff that they've been doing. But Bucky discovered this in the 20s and decided to try to, the Spirit told him to put it into buildings, make buildings out of it, the geodesic domes. Well, the military started using the domes in the 50s, and the hippies started using them in the 60s. We still use them, but if you look on the web, there's quite a bit on it. There's a website called vortexmaps.com, and it is fantastic. And it shows the Earth map of 62 power points on the Earth, and like, if, for example, there's 5 of them going around in the northern hemisphere at 19.5 degrees latitude, and it's called, there's 5 of them: the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Triangle in south of Japan, the Big Island Hawaii, Afghanistan, and there's another, Northwest Africa, around the Northwest Sahara and eastern Morocco. Those are the 5 most powerful points in 19.5 around the Earth. And also the Giza Pyramids in Egypt. So there's 62 of these points, including the North and South Pole and so on. And those are giant vortexes, 500 miles across.
Wow, and the 19.5, as you mentioned, that reminds me of Hoagland's work, and I think he even took a tetrahedron and placed that inside the Earth, and the top portion of the pyramid and the bottom portion of the other pyramid actually ends up, I think, aligns at 19.5 if you place a tetrahedron inside a sphere. Do you know if that's... have you heard about that?
Yeah, well, those are a lot of abstractions, and those people who have that geometry, they like to make abstractions about where you put this and where you put that and all those kind of things. And it's true, but at the same time, it's an abstraction. Geometry is actually nature. Nature is the geometry. And metallurgy and organic chemistry have been derived from the snowflake crystals. The hexagonal geometry is the geometry of nature. Beehives and eyes and cells and packing and angles. When Bucky was doing this, he just kept designing and redesigning his domes for 50 years. But it was always the geometry of nature. It was always imitating nature and respecting nature and loving nature. And if you notice with geometry of industry, is that geometry, but they hide it. The drug geometry, the metallurgy, the chemicals, the oils, plastics, it's all using that geometry. And how do we find it? Well, we find, if you just find it in nature, you go out and see everything is 4s, 5s, and 6s. And then the chaos is the odd numbers, 3, 7, 9s, and so on, is the chaos. So the structure of nature is the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and the even numbers, and the chaos is the odd numbers, 3, 7, 9, 11, and so on. And that's how nature organized itself. Even astrology is based on those angles and those numbers.
Wow, that's
But I like the patterns of nature more than I do numbers and abstractions. 19.5, you might say, oh, it's a coincidence. No, it's nature organizing things.
That's right.
In spirals. Nature organizes everything in spirals that is changing, it's moving, water and air. Well, of course, fire too, but fire is a little too chaotic to look at it as geometry. But of the 4 elements, air, fire, earth, and water, the 2 elements, or actually 3 elements of chaos, air, water, and fire, are all spiral. And the geometry of ice and snow is hexagonal, and that's geodesic. And then the geometry of Earth, which is solids, crystals, metals, and so on, is the hexagonal things. And then life is it's all of those. Actually, life is all the spiral helix of the DNA, and then the cells, which are organized with the hexagonal. So it's just nature organizing things. The consciousness